Hey guys, it's Rich. Today we're going to look at how to install Tailwind CSS into a Next.js project. And so we're going to do this in two parts. Part one will focus on incorporating Tailwind CSS into a Next.js project from the beginning, so from installation. And then the second part will focus on incorporating Tailwind CSS into a pre-existing Next.js project. So if you haven't got Tailwind CSS in your Next.js project already, you're not too late. We'll get that sorted. And then for a bonus treat at the end, we'll also look at the installation of certain plugins and extensions to improve your Tailwind CSS experience. All right, let's get it.
Okay, so as a brief intro, Next.js is an open source front-end framework developed by Vercel, and it allows you to build full stack web applications with React. And some of the key benefits is that it's super fast, allows for server-side rendering, code splitting, routing, middleware, and yeah, just allows you to write really clean and concise code. And so it's generally become a really big favorite amongst the React community. And Tailwind CSS, on the other hand, is a very popular utility-first CSS framework that allows you to build out custom interfaces in no time. Usually you would end up with tons of CSS and lots of arbitrary class names, and nothing would be really well-defined or easy to navigate. Whereas with Tailwind CSS, these predefined classes make it easy for you to style components quickly and with minimal CSS configuration. And Tailwind CSS works with any front-end framework, and so it's not limited to working with Next.js, but as you can see in the framework guidelines, actually it can work with Nuxt or Gatsby or Vite or Remix or Svelte or any of the other kind of major frameworks out there, like Angular and stuff. So, and on that note, we're going to get started. And so we've gone to docs, framework guides, and now we're going to go to Next.js. And here we've got the instructions for setting up a Next.js project that involves Tailwind from the outset. And so to do that, let's open up Visual Studio. We'll set up a new Tailwind CSS file. And so we will cd into code and we will make Tailwind example 1. And we will cd into that example 1. And now, actually, we will open that up. Cool. And now that we've got that, we can go back to the instructions, copy step 1 and paste that into our terminal. And all we're doing is creating a Next.js app, and we're naming it my project at the moment. So we're going to change that to be TW Next, Tailwind Next, and it's TypeScript and with ESLint, and that's fine. And then we will change directory after that to TW Next, the project name. Now, do we want to install Tailwind CSS? Yes, we do. Do we want to use the src directory? Yes. App router? Yes. And we don't need to customize the aliases, so no. And that will now be installing. And so we should, everything is just being populated, and we should see eventually node modules appearing with all the dependencies as well. That's finished. Perfect. Next step is to install Tailwind CSS. So if we go back and we take step 2 and again copy and we paste that in directly as is, that's all fine. And then for step 3, we just need to copy over this configuration into the tailwind.config.js. But because we've got TypeScript, we've actually ended up with 2 files here. And so we can actually delete this tailwind.config.js, and our tailwind.config.ts is actually already pre-populated. So that's good. Now, step 4 is to actually import the directives, but they actually get imported now as part of an earlier step. And then step 5 is the build process. So we can just do npm run dev. And if we do that, everything should run fine. Make sure you're in the TW Next directory as well. And so if we were to open that up, everything is good. And so the question is it actually using Tailwind CSS already? And the answer is yes. You can see it in the class names, things like flex, min-h-screen, flex call, item center. These are all Tailwind CSS classes, h48, sets the height to 12 rem, etc. And so what we can also do to test this again is to delete all of this stuff, create a div, and we will set that to be hello world. And we can set class name, and if we were to do text Excel and text blue 300, you can see it's worked perfectly. We can also, if we wanted to make that look a bit prettier, we could flex. Perfect. You see? So that's all working fine. So this is how you would install, start building things with Tailwind CSS really quickly without needing to set up separate CSS files. And by the way, something you might have noticed is that when I hover over my classes, I'm getting the underlying CSS, and I'm also seeing the colors for things that I've put in. This is all fine. I'll explain all of this at the end. I did mention it earlier, but we'll run through some of the plugins and extensions later on after the next section. So what we'll do now that we know how to set up Tailwind CSS in a Next.js project from the beginning, but now we can change our attention and look at how we would implement Tailwind CSS into a pre-existing Next.js project. So if we close all of this, we can now again make dir tw example 2 and cd tw example 2, and now we will open up that folder, and this time we'll follow the instructions on the Next.js documentation, or quite simply we could copy it and paste it from here, but it's the same thing in the docs, I believe, in the installation section. Yes, so npx create next app at latest. And so when we do that, funny enough, you'll actually see it will offer you the opportunity, so we'll do that Tailwind next too. It will offer you the opportunity to add in Tailwind. So do we like TypeScript? Yes. Do we want ESLint? Yes. Do we want Tailwind CSS? Let's say no in this instance. But Tailwind CSS is so prevalent that it's almost impossible nowadays for you to make a project without it. But just in case you have, and you want to retrospectively put Tailwind CSS in, that's fine. src directory, yes. App router, yes. Custom alias, no. That's fine. And again, what we'll see is it will populate the folder with all of the relevant directories and things like that, Next.js 13, and it will also add node modules to implement the dependencies. Perfect. Now cd into td next2, so we're to change directory to get into the actual Tailwind next2 directory, and then if we were to run npm run dev, this time again what we should see is a similar kind of setup to what we saw previously. However, the issue is this time, if we go back to the code, when we look at page, is that the class names are not Tailwind CSS classes. They are not Tailwind CSS classes. And so what we can do again to check that is to delete all of this, and we can set up a div, and we can say hello world. We can delete those things. And we will put in class name, text XL, and text blue 300. Now we don't expect this to do anything, and it has not, even when we refreshed. Perfect. So Tailwind CSS has not been implemented in this yet, and so now we will look into how would we add Tailwind CSS to a pre-existing Next.js project that does not have Tailwind CSS present. If we go back to Tailwind CSS's documentation, and this time if we go to using post CSS, we'll be able to follow the steps here to get us most of the way, if not all of the way. And so first things first, we'll follow step 1 and copy and paste that in. Let's close that and copy and paste it in as per usual. And that's fine. Let's create the tailwind.config.js. And next we need to create a post CSS config.js, and we will copy and paste in this information. So new file post css.config.js, and we'll paste in that information. Perfect. Step 3 is to copy this line into your Tailwind config.js, the content line, so we'll know what content to pick up. And so we'll do that here. And then 4th, we will copy the directives into the CSS file. And so we'll do that at the top here. And then 5th, we need to run npm dev. Now, this will not work yet, and I will show you and explain why in a second. Right, so it's not worked. There's been no stylistic changes to this hello world yet. And the reason being is, as you can see, it says no utility classes were detected in your source files. And so we should double check the content option, right? And so if we go back to tailwind.config.js, we'll realize it's looking for .js files, but actually we're dealing with .tsx. And so if we press comma tsx, this will now work. So now we have Tailwind CSS working in a pre-existing Next.js project. And that's all you need to do. And again, we can check that. We can make this slightly nicer just by doing, and so now this all looks better. It's working with Tailwind. We can make changes. We can build things quickly. Perfect. And so I did mention earlier, there are a couple things that you can do to make your life so much easier as a developer with Tailwind. First one is the Tailwind Intellisense. So if you go to the extensions, you will see Tailwind CSS Intellisense. First thing I would recommend is Tailwind CSS Intellisense. It's amazing for code completion, for hovering over things and seeing the underlying CSS, for linting. It's amazing. And even highlighting potential issues, etc. So that's number one. And number two is the Tailwind Prettier plugin. Now this is particularly useful because it helps to automatically sort your classes in Tailwind according to the recommended class order. This is an official plugin that is maintained by the Tailwind CSS team. And so it actually sorts classes by groupings and the order that they'll overwrite one another. And it groups things like hover classes and focus classes together, and even things like the responsive modifiers, etc. It's really, really useful, and it will help to embed a lot more consistency across your code base and make things a lot more predictable. And also it's a lot easier when it comes to maintaining things and preventing large merge issues when doing git commits. And so the best way to do that is to go to their plugin extension on GitHub. And here you'll see that first it tells you to do npm install the prettier plugin Tailwind CSS. So if we just copy and paste that again, we'll cancel that for a second and paste this in, that will slowly install. And so that's installed both Prettier and the Prettier plugin for Tailwind CSS. And next we want to add this line to a prettier.config.js file at the root of our project. And so again, just go to the root here. That's interesting. That should be within there. It won't immediately affect things, but that should have been in there. So we'll do prettier.config.js and we'll paste that info in. Perfect. And now when I come to my file and I hit save, this works. But for that to work for you, you might need to go to your settings for VS Code. And when you search format, you will scroll down and see format on save. You need to set format on save to be true. If format of save is true, then whenever you hit Control S, things will rearrange accordingly. And so even if I was to put this here, for example, if I hit Control S, things go back to the way they should. And now you have both Intellisense and Prettier formatting. Amazing.
Hey guys, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If there's any thoughts, questions, suggestions, comments, anything, let me know in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed the video, then definitely give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more, which I'm sure you do, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. All right, cheers.